Item number, SCP-6429. Object Class, Safe. Special Containment Procedures. Instances of SCP-6429 are contained within separate storage lockers at Reliquary Site-27. Foundation containment teams are to routinely monitor the Himalayas for SCP-6429-A activity every 6 months. Description: SCP-6429 denotes a set of items that consist of several remains of an anomalous hominid species, SCP-6429-A, as well as several pieces of media depicting SCP-6429-A. SCP-6429 instances have primarily come from the Himalayas and the regions surrounding it. SCP-6429-A has been designated Homo Magnus Frater. SCP-6429 includes SCP-6429-1 refers to a collection of body parts from SCP-6429-A. SCP-6429-1 includes several finger bones belonging to an SCP-6429-A instance. This is pointed towards SCP-6429-A belonging to the taxonomic order primates due to the similar bone structure of the digits. These digits contain the presence of abnormal bone growth resembling that of bear claws. SCP-6429-1 also includes a mummified scalp of an SCP-6429-A instance, with carbon dating suggesting it to be approximately 300–400 years old. Both the finger bones and scalp were originally discovered to be in the possession of Tibetan Buddhist monks. SCP-6429-1 also includes several strands of red hair collected from a hollow cedar tree in Bhutan, from an SCP-6429-A instance. DNA analysis has shown that SCP-6429-A contains DNA from several now-extinct hominid species, as well as DNA related to a now-extinct Paleolithic bear species, endemic to the Himalayas. It is unknown how SCP-6429-A instances were capable of inhabiting this environment. SCP-6429-2 refers to a photo depicting a footprint in the snow from an SCP-6429-A instance. Analysis has shown that the footprint closely resembles the foot structure of several hominid species not endemic to the Himalayan region. The footprint is roughly 0.75 meters in length. SCP-64293 refers to an artistic rendering of an SCP-6429-A instance found in the Anatomical Dictionary by Love Sanyondan and Send Ochuber circa the 18th century. SCP-6429-A is believed to be the Yeh-Teh, as described in Tibetan mythology. If all instances of SCP-6429 are brought together within a radius of 5 meters, a reality-altering phenomenon will take place in which SCP-6429-A will manifest within certain media. Notable examples include the appearance of the character Bumble in the 1964 Christmas television special, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Another notable example is the appearance of the abominable snowman in the 2001 animated movie, Monsters, Inc. Addendum 6429.1. In 1957, MTF Psi-01, Snowplow, were tasked with attempting to locate and contain an SCP-6429-A instance. Due to technology at the time, the only recording of the mission is a journal from Psi-01 member Jasper Clark. This occurred before the discovery of all the SCP-6429 instances. March 1, 1957. I haven't been on a Foundation exploration for the better half of a year, let alone one that has taken me so far out of the country. It irritates me to my core not to be given even the slightest hint of what we may come across. All they have disclosed is that it's some kind of beast hidden within the Himalayan mountains. Such secrecy, I hope, is not an omen of what is to come, but I won't push for more details if I am to keep this job. For the first day of the expedition, it was a rather pleasant mood meeting up with several other Foundation operatives from the area at a camp by the base of the mountains. They introduced our team to 2 monks from the area. They spoke of a species of wild men within the mountains. Not many details about their appearance were given. However, the name Yeh-Teh was thrown around, or as they referred to it, Yeh-Teh. I faintly recognized the name from the newspapers. The monks told us that the creature was fairly neutral, only attacking if disturbed. I suppose that's one good thing. We stopped by base camp to prepare for tomorrow's endeavor. I pray to God that I arrive home with all my limbs still attached to me. Supper was served in the mess hall, the standard grub with a little bit of regional flair. Not too bad for the Foundation, although the addition of some salt would have satisfied me much better. I couldn't help but wander out a little after dark, sneaking out in the dead silence of night to explore a little, as was my curious nature. Outside the camp was a little shack that had the lights still on. Wondering what was happening inside, I looked in through a hole in the wall. It appeared to be a group of young men forming a half-circle around a series of artifacts, what looked to be several bones and a patch of dirty, furry flesh. Around the remains were several photos that I could not identify. They definitely weren't the monks, and were seeming to perform some kind of rite. I thought it best not to intrude on forces that I do not understand, so I quickly made my way back to the site. March 2nd, 1957. It was around 6:45 a.m. when we set off into the mountains. Our captain said that it was best to leave before many people saw us in our gear in case the locals caught on to our plans. The 2 monks from the day before joined our group to give guidance so we didn't get ourselves killed. I was rather suspicious as to the reason for them tagging along, but I suppose it would help to have a few extra spotters while I take my morning piss. The day was mostly uneventful. The thick forests lead into barren wastes of brown soil and giant gray rocks that looked as if they had been placed there by titans. In the distances were titanic mountains covered in snow that stretched above the clouds. I had heard the tales of British explorers who dared climb to the top of these structures, lumbering through the bitter cold and low oxygen. Even at this point I had begun to feel lightheaded, requiring a rest every so often as we trekked through the unending landscape and so-called wonder of the world. We discovered the carcass of a deceased yak, with its gut being torn down the side by ravenous talons and its neck being bitten open by the jaws of some colossal animal. A leg had been pulled from its body right out of the socket and had been seemingly dragged away by some creature. A trail of bloody footprints led off over a hill. Not in all my years on this planet had I seen such giant imprints before, with a wide base and spread-out toes that ended in large nails. They were bigger than our ice picks and had to have been from the elusive wild men that haunted these mountains. From the distance stood a man and his cattle, simply watching us. He did not make a move. He only watched. By nightfall, we had established a base within a cave, with the entrance being a thin slit in between the rocks to protect us from predators. The cave was rather spacious on the inside, with enough room to set up several tents to hold out for the night. We were lucky to have made the decision to stay in that cave, since during the night we came under attack by a dark shape in the night. It was impossible to make out, but most of us agreed it was just a bear snooping around. If anything, it reminded me just how big bears are. The captain, being as stern as he always is, simply loaded his weapon and shot at the cave walls near it, scaring away the animal. March 3rd, 1957. Today we noticed a large, furry beast far in the distance storming its way up a mountain. It was hard to make out any distinct features from the mass as it stumbled about. Whether it walked on 4 legs or 2 legs, I could not tell. Perhaps it was just another bear, and I know this may seem to contradict what I have stated previously, but I doubt a bear could ever grow to such a size. Nevertheless, it was our first potential sighting, so we decided to call out and see if we could get its attention. It shifted its head round to take a look at us with bright, glowing eyes. It was as if it stared directly into our souls. Just like that, it swiftly turned back around and wandered off. In an attempt to follow the beast, we rushed to its location to find absolutely no tracks. It was as if it had never been there, like some figment. To gauge some kind of idea where this thing could be, we asked several of the locals. The word "midred" was uttered several times. It was some kind of half-man hybrid that stalked the mountains. You think a whole species of giant monkeys would show themselves more. March 4th, 1957. During the night, we were faced with more bears surrounding the cave. Instead, this time, they just sat there staring at us with intense eyes, ready to pounce at any moment. By sunrise, they had all gone, with no trace left behind, as per usual. Something quite shocking had occurred today. While taking a break, Jason left to go relieve himself behind the rocks. After roughly a minute, we heard the sound of gunshots and screaming. Rushing to the location revealed Jason's flailing body being mauled by a huge bear. The beast was over 3 meters tall, with black piercing eyes and ragged reddish fur. Its maw was a mess of gore and saliva, as viscera dropped from its jaws. We began to shoot at the beast, yet our bullets simply bounced off its immense pelt, landing on the dirt nearby. The creature barely even reacted as it let go of Jason's throat, allowing his body to slump down to the ground. The beast looked upon us with hungry eyes, showing off 1,000 scars from a history of fighting. As it began to approach, the mountains were suddenly filled with the roar of something else, something much bigger. The bear began to wince, quickly turning before running off. Jason's body was frozen in a state of terror, his eyes rolled back in a mix of suffocation and blood loss, his arms clutching at a burst jugular. We buried him in the snow of a nearby mountain. If a bear like that was scared away by that roar, I can only imagine the creature that produced it. Part of me wants to get this over and done with, yet the other is fearful of what I may encounter during the next few days. I feel my skin shivering and my hairs standing up. The monks told us that we should act quickly, since the wild men are growing more agitated the more we stay here. March 5, 1957. Once again we have been beset on by the bears, however something was different. From within the cave came the sound of chanting, as the giant bear from the day before walked through the crowd. Clutched in its jaws was the corpse of Jason. As muck and blood dribbled down onto the ground, it dropped the rotting body by the cave's entrance, hissing and growling as it waited. From the darkness behind came a colossal figure, rumbling the ground as it walked. Each step was slow and lumbering as the monster came into view. Under bloody matted hair was a gaunt yet muscular frame with broad shoulders and bulky limbs. Its face had a wide, toothy maw that grinned with inhuman malice. The remainder of the head was shadowed by thick dreads. Its arms stretched down to its knees, with human figures ending in black talons. The figure must have been at least 5 meters tall and at least half a ton. Clenching its fists, it produced a tremendous cry, some cacophony of roars from bears, cows, monkeys, and even the screams of humans. The cry spurted out saliva and blood, coating the ground and rock. After a good 10 seconds, the monster finally stopped. At that moment, all the bears began to approach the entrance. The horde began to claw at the cave's entrance, some even wrapping their jaws around the rock, breaking teeth and stone. The captain ordered us to gather our weapons and begin our assault on the mass of bears. The bullets burst through their thick skulls, causing many to collapse. As soon as one fell, it was replaced by another who would begin digging at the entrance. As it slowly widened, more breached through, causing us all to back up until we hit a wall. A monk found himself too close to the horde and was quickly engulfed by the bears. In an instant, his body was torn apart. The entrance was wide enough for the colossal humanoid to enter, as we all stared frozen in place, too afraid to raise our weapons. The captain pulled out a pistol, pointing it towards the creature's head. With a smile on its face, it merely swatted the weapon away before a round was unloaded. By this point, I had fully accepted that any attempt at escape would be futile, and would result in the death of my dignity as well. I accepted the death that was soon to come, yet it never came. Peeling open my eyes, I saw the horde had turned to face towards the cave's entrance. Several meters away from the entrance stood another one of the wild men. However, this time it was covered with a coat almost whiter than the surrounding snow. The two beasts looked at each other completely still and unreactive. The bears began to exit from the cave along with their leader. With a charge, they engaged the other beast. In my panic, I couldn't not recall the ensuing battle that took place. The only piece I can remember is the noise of it all. Like an orchestra of chaos, the two forces fought, sending meat and guts into the surrounding area. The entrance now free, we all ran down the mountains, hoping to be free of the wild men's rampage. I had never ran so fast in my life. It wasn't until sunrise did we finally see base camp and we could finally leave this place for good. While driving on the coach back across the border, I couldn't help but notice how all the civilians around were staring at us as we went along. Not like a curious stare, but one that seemed to be filled with intention. Maybe I'm just imagining things. I can't seem to get the image of the wild men out of my head. Maybe I just need a proper night's rest, that's all. After the return of Psi-01, a second Foundation containment team, MTF Lambda-08, were sent in and reported no activity from the Himalayan region regarding the SCP-6429A instances. Lambda-08 discovered the location of Psi-01's campsite situated within a space through an opening in a cliff face. There were clear signs of weathering, with bits of rock being chipped away from the sides of the entrance. The body of Jason Heisenberg was located roughly 20 miles from the campsite. Along with this, There was also a clear lack of evidence that a fight had taken place. Analysis of suits worn by Psi-01 revealed the presence of blood which was discovered to be a genetic match with the local Himalayan bear populations.